get the great honor of sharing with you one of my greatest, maybe, don't tell the other deities, but she's actually my favorite. It's our secret, okay? Shh. So I want to just talk a little bit about Lakshmi and share my inspiration as to why she's so special for me on my spiritual journey. So just a little iconography, so we can look here and we can see that she is this depiction of, okay, so first of all, let me just, little foundations, okay? So the iconography, the mantras, the stories, because there's always myths and the stories go along with the deities. All of that is technology for us to go into the subconscious. It's to activate and awaken a deeper meaning of life, deeper essences of life, and then to pull out the gems and direct us ultimately, empower us on our path. So all of these teachings, whether there's the teachings or the iconography or the mantra or the yoga practices, whatever it may be, it's all designed to empower us on our path. And that's at a physical level, it's at the mental level, it's at the energetic level, and of course at the deepest level, it's at the soul and the spiritual level. Okay? So if we look at this depiction, for example, we see that she is in her royal regalia. She's in a beautiful pink sari. It's very common that she's depicted in that way. And you can see these gold coins flowing from her, right? So she is known as the goddess of prosperity. She's the goddess known as for giving and receiving. And what I always find really important to anchor into our consciousness is that, again, there's so much symbolism that's taking place here. And ultimately, this is a story of our own life. It's an archetype of our own life. How many of you enjoy having money? We like having money to spend on, food and, cars and houses and technology and invite people over and, right, go on trips. So we love having money, abundance. There's nothing wrong with money. Now, how many of you maybe have at times struggled with money? Whether maybe you don't have enough, maybe you have too much. Maybe it's a kind of a pain to deal with all your money, There's that too, right? And so we have the material aspect of the prosperity, and then we also have the spiritual aspect of prosperity. How many of you have how many of you have like more than 10 books on spirituality in your house? How about 20 books on spirituality in your house? How about 30 books on spirituality in your house? How many of you have about 10 books that you've never even read on spirituality, but they're definitely in your house, and you're like, I'm absorbing them through just osmosis. They're there. I've heard that before. I'll put my book under my pillow, and I just absorb it that way. So what it symbolizes is that just from the books, let's not even talk spiritual teachers and teachings that we have in abundance. Now, how many of you have had a significant person in your life who has helped you along the path of spirituality? Perfect. So they represent Lakshmi. They represent this prosperity, this abundance of spiritual teachings in your life. The books in your house represent prosperity. An abundance that's there. I mean, we could live in a different era where books would be almost non-existent. It would be very hard to get a hold of a book, right? So we're in this era of like, oh my gosh, endless books. Why do we even want books anymore? We got iPads. We have everything on Audible. Now it's like, oh my gosh, it's a burden to have a book sometimes, right? So now we're in a whole different era because now we have it all on podcasts and we all have it on Audible. And literally, you have so many options to choose from, you get overwhelmed. I was going to go listen to something spiritual, but just by trying to find something, I got overwhelmed and then I got distracted and I was doing something else. So now we have to have discernment of where we put our energy. Where do we put our focus? So again, you see, we have this surplus of abundance, and Lakshmi represents the material abundance, and she represents our spiritual abundance. However, with that said, she also represents not only that, but this ongoing blossoming of our awakening. So she's the goddess of the lotus. And the lotus represents coming from the mud, of course, to blossom out of the water. And it represents coming out of our ignorance, ultimately, our disconnection from life, disconnection from source, disconnection from the divine, and keep opening up to the infinite possibilities. Because it's very important from the yoga tradition, from the bhakti yoga tradition, consciousness is infinite. The divine is infinite. So there's never an end game to how we can connect and merge with the divine. The more that we can learn about the divine, the more we can feel the divine, the more that we can experience the divine, internally and externally. Internally and externally. Which means that we don't just connect to the divine just from praying, from meditating. It means that also on the external plane, we keep cultivating that awareness of, oh my gosh, what a divinity, what a divine experience from the people that I see, the nature walks that I get to go out, and I get to go along the Deschutes and go out in the mountains and go along the Sisters and Mount Bachelor and on and on and on, right? This is why we live, why you all live here, because, right, one of the big reasons you love the nature surroundings in Central Oregon. Is this correct? We love it here. So that is also Lakshmi, because Lakshmi ultimately is also Mother Nature. She is Mother Nature. She's constantly providing. So the question that we all have to go into a deep understanding too, and an inquiry is like, how is it possible that there is so much diversity of life? How is it possible that there's just this continuation of life that just keeps happening and nurturing? So this is a really important piece for the Lakshmi perspective in regards to our relationship to Mother Nature. Because she is that aspect of Mother Nature that just keeps giving. God just keeps giving. The waters, the air, the earth. And some might even say the sun. And sometimes they distinguish between more of a little masculine principle or the feminine principle. But ultimately, it's every aspect of consciousness that is the inputs to keep sustaining life. To just keep sustaining life. And not only just sustaining life, it's thriving. Lakshmi is like thriving. She's rich. And she represents the richness of life, the enrichment of life. And when we look at the richness of our lives, just from a personal level, we usually look at the foundation first, and that foundation is our health. Our health represents an abundance. If our health is good, we're good, right? Then we can really set our sights. But if we're really having issues with something in our bodies, it's like, oh my gosh, so much of our attention then goes right to those challenges, right? All of a sudden, so many of our thoughts, our energy, we got to spend so much money on massages, on acupuncture, on doctor's visits, and on and on and on. Just, we got to get this thing fixed. And so then all of a sudden, we're in that focus to support and get our bodies, or in this case, we could also say our minds, back into an optimal state. And then we get it back and we're like, yes, I can go get some French fries now. Pizza party! Right, but that's also part of the celebration. It's the enjoyment. And then from there, an abundance also represents how we come together with our friends, with our families, with our communities, with our cities, with our states, with our nation, at the global level. All of a sudden, it's this look at our ability to connect and work together and support one another and care about one each other, and all of a sudden, and make life better for each other. That's a very important Lakshmi principle. that we're thinking about the greater collective. That's a very important Lakshmi principle, and that is kind of under the umbrella of harmony. Harmony is a crucial teaching of Lakshmi because it's hard to feel like really prosperous, really in your beauty and your radiance and your joy when there's disharmony. Is it hard for you when you're fighting with your loved one or spouse? You got something like, that you're really, struggling, challenged. It takes so much of your mental capacity and resources, emotionally draining, right? It's like, oh God, we need to fix this thing, right? That's more the masculine. We got to fix this. And then the feminine's like, no. We just need to hold it. We need to experience it. We need to be with it. And then we need to love it. And we need to love each other. And then we're going to move through it. And we can allow it to be and just take its process. Now I'm getting into relationship dynamics. But that's an important piece of Lakshmi because she represents harmony in our relationships. And so one of the crucial developments of Lakshmi is developing how to be in harmony with our relationships. Communication, sensitivity, care, compassion. All of this is anchored in our hearts. So Lakshmi, from the yoga perspective, she's right here. Her temple is right here. Her temple is right at your heart. And so when we talk about Lakshmi at the blossoming of the lotus of the heart, that's where the more our hearts open, the more she's ever present. Right? When we have an open heart, we don't mind, giving some money to help somebody else out. We're like, no, I got it. I trust. I'm in a good place. I feel good about life. I'm going to give. But if I'm in scarcity, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to give to that person. I got to take care of me. When we're feeling very heart-centered and open, we just feel a natural giving and receiving. A natural giving and receiving. And so this is what that symbolism here is, of this giving and receiving. And not only that, but then it said that she's celebrated. So you see these elephants on the side. This is a very important depiction. The elephants bathing her and showering her. And they said this is the nectar of immortality. Is she's like the milks of immortality that she's being bathed in. And she's celebrated through the elephants. And elephants themselves represent a great abundance, not only in nature, but of course if you're in India, for example, because obviously it has a lot of Indian cultural context, is that only the royal, families could even dream of having an elephant, because they eat a lot. It takes a lot of resources to have an elephant. It takes a lot of care. A horse is enough, right? That's a lot of work to do a horse. Anybody take care of a horse? I always hear, I'm like, wow, that's a lot of work to take care of a horse. Now imagine an elephant. It's like 10 times the horse. It's a lot of hay. Big cleanup crew. It's a lot of manure. It's a lot of manure. And ultimately, it's all symbolism. Again, it's technology. Because consciously, you might be like, oh, that's nice. I don't know. It's kind of a cool painting and depiction. Okay, cool. But your subconscious goes, fascinating. I'm interested. Or maybe you're like, I'm not interested. And then if you're not interested, maybe even a better question, why not? What's the resistance with that? Oh, it's Indian. Well, it's not Indian. The reality is all of this is technology for humanity. It's technology for us to evolve our consciousness. And it just so happens that this particular body of teachings has been anchored in a place called India now. It wasn't called India 4,000, 5,000 years ago, when these teachings really got anchored, it wasn't called India. It was called Bharat. But even then, it was a different shape. It was a different place, If we were here in Bend, Oregon 1,000 years ago, it wouldn't be called Bend. And there wouldn't be light-colored skinned people here. It just wouldn't be. And there's nothing wrong. Things change. It's the nature of life. Things change. People move around. And so it's important that also with these teachings we recognize that it's not an Indian thing. It's been anchored in India. Absolutely. It's been there for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Definitely. But as my belief goes, I think that the deities wanted to come and experience the United States of America. They wanted to come to Bend, Oregon and go paddleboarding on the Deschutes River with live music at night, and the geese with their butts in the air. It's not about a culture. It's not about a race. It's not about a sexual orientation. It's teachings for humanity to evolve if you unlock the keys. And then you find that inspiration to learn and to grow and to practice. Because more than anything about this tradition, they say it's not just about intellectual. The intellectual is a very small portion of it, because the intellectual portion is still typically in the conscious mind. And if we know anything about the conscious mind, it's a very small aspect of the mind. The majority of our mind is in the subconscious. When you talk about the deep-seated beliefs that you have for your life, that which is really governing your life, it's in your subconscious mind. Who you think you are, the things that you want to do, all that. It is, almost all of it is anchored in our subconscious mind. And when we talk about deep spiritual growth, it's not conscious. We can consciously approach it, but in the end, we have to anchor it into the subconscious. And that anchoring into the subconscious is done through regular practice. Regular application of the practice. And so we regularly practice in this yoga tradition by doing mantra practice, by doing asanas, postures, by doing breath work, pranayama, by doing meditation, dhyana, by bringing our senses inward, pratyahara, and then ultimately doing our best to create the container to keep connecting to our spirit on a regular basis. This is not just every Sunday. It's not a Sunday thing. It's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday thing. And the yogis knew, because if you're not going to make headway, or very little headway, a once-a-week program. How many of you have established a good practice or a habit of some kind? My guess is that you didn't do it once a week. You didn't do it once a week. If you really got into something, you did it every day. And my guess is you did it for more than just 5 minutes. You probably did it for 10, 20, 30, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. And the thing is, our bad habits can also be established just like that. Regular basis. Oh, I just regularly do this same thing. And I keep doing it, and I've established a really good groove, and now I have a really bad habit. I have a really bad habit. And you know what's the thing about bad habits is, just like good habits, they're hard to untrench. Those grooves are deep. And it's hard to break them. The worse the habit, then it becomes an addiction. And now we have a whole nother challenge. Because now the mind is so set on a certain pattern that, woo, that's going to be challenging to change that groove. And typically, for those of you who probably have dealing with an addiction, a huge part of that change from an addictive pattern is to establish a new pattern. Establish a new pattern, a new way of being, a new way of thought, a connection to a higher power, higher source. Been to an AA meeting? First step, acknowledge that there's a higher power. And so this is a way from the yoga tradition to acknowledge that there's a higher power. Somehow, some way, we're always being provided for. Somehow, some way, we're always being provided for. And you could say, well, yeah, but I mean, I worked and I went to the grocery store and I, bought the food and I prepared the food. And yeah, but you ask a farmer and they say, how much control and power do you have over your crops? Can you force the tree to give the crops or the plants to give the crops? Oh, you can just create the nurturing, give it the water, give it the love, however you tend the soils. Maybe you're really into it and you sing to them or you talk to the plants, This one needs a little talking to, by the way. Needs some more singing too. Hey, this one's doing good though. That's a happy plant over there. So that nurturing, this is what we come back to. Lakshmi. Lakshmi is the nurturing. She's that aspect of consciousness that is constantly nurturing. And because we are consciousness, because we are Mother Nature, we have that nurturing ability. And we can nurture others just like, crucial, right, parents? What would happen if you didn't nurture your kids? You have a situation. And then, if you put that nurturing into yourself, you get to see the fruits of what you nurture. If you nurture the soul and the spirit, then you get to see the fruits of it. You get to see the endless fruiting of your commitment to yourself. And not your ego self, obviously. We have plenty of that. But we're talking about the commitment to that timeless self. The commitment that nurtures that deepest essence of your being. And this is Bhakti Yoga in a nutshell. Because Bhakti Yoga is the yoga of devotion. It's the yoga of the heart. It's the yoga of love and connection to the heart. And so we literally, not just, oh yeah, it's a nice thing to do. It's like, no, we make it a practice. We make it a practice to cultivate how can we nurture our hearts? How can we nurture our souls on a daily basis? That's the Lakshmi way. That's the Lakshmi teachings. And it looks different for everybody. And this is an important piece. It looks different for everybody. Some people it's being a parent. Some people it's being a gardener. Some people it's serving in your community in different ways. Some people it's praying. Some people it's giving. On and on and on. And Lakshmi has no issues with money, by the way, because she's a reminder of like, hey, there's an infinite supply. Infinite supply. So for her, she's not, that consciousness isn't getting hung up on the money piece. Have we ever gotten to that place where it's so nice, right? When you get to that place where it's like, whatever. I'm so happy to spend money here, spend money there, give money here, give money there. No problem. I know more's coming. No problem. And the trippy thing about it is, though, that even within that mindset, that's a certain mindset, and then the next minute you can go back into lack. You could be like, I'm in abundance mode, I'm in lack. You're like, I'm so abundant, stock market just crashed. Holy crap! Don't spend anything. Just like that, the mindset switches. Just like that, the mindset switches. And then our practice, come back. Come back into that state of consciousness. And again, so that how we do that from the yoga perspective is we come back to the iconography, we could come back to the stories, we could come back to the mantras. And then of course, not only is it an internal journey, it's an external journey. So maybe it's just like, you know what? I'm feeling lack, and I'm gonna go against that lack consciousness, and I'm gonna give, even when I'm not feeling like giving. Oh, that's a tough one. You're running up against your own programming. And how many of you have a story of where you gave when you didn't really want to give, or you really, yeah, but then you felt the blessing of that? Have you felt that before? Have you felt that? So from this perspective, we would say that's your Lakshmi consciousness blossoming. That's the lotus flower, a deeper trust, because it's such a huge part of our hearts and the Lakshmi essence is we got to trust. How can you love without trusting? How can you love without trusting? And we all know, most of us probably are in relationships of some form or another. Actually, I know you're all in relationships of some form or another. That's just the nature of humanity. And we got to trust. A life that you're just constantly living in doubt and fear, it's a very poor life. It's a poor life. Constant conspiracy theories, government's out to get me, other people are out to get me. It's a poor life. A trusting life, I trust in my partner, I trust in my kids and my family, I trust in my community, I trust even in my nation, even though I know there's some weird stuff going on. I know there's some shady stuff going on, but I still trust in the overall collective because look at what's happening in Bend, Oregon. Aren't we living a good life? Somehow this is still part of the United States of America. I don't know who the political parties involved in right now, but this is still happening. So can we at least trust in the goodness of humanity? Because somehow 300 plus million people have agreed to have a shared belief in something called the United States of America. And because of that and the certain values that we've all shared to a certain degree, we have Bend, Oregon, like the way we have Bend, Oregon right now. And that means that a lot of people had to trust. They had to trust. They had to trust in other people they don't even know. I don't know who's working on the roads, who's doing the electricity, who's doing the plumbing, who built this incredible sanctuary. I don't know who did it. Someone did. People did it, and we trusted. So trust is like, wow, what an abundance. What a prosperous life when we trust. A really, really crucial piece of Lakshmi. I think that'll probably be a good place to end this talk, is the prosperity of trust, the prosperity of harmony, the prosperity of health, the prosperity of Mother Nature. On and on and on. That we can anchor into our consciousness, that we can give gratitude for, because the ultimate overarching thing of all of it, or the foundation of all of it, is gratitude. Gratitude. Lakshmi is the queen of gratitude. The queen of gratitude. No complaints out of Lakshmi's mouth. Just gratitude.